So welcome back to the podcast. It's always a privilege and honour to have guests that join me on the show. And one of the things that I love to do is to talk to them about their career, their life, their story, what they've done to achieve things. And I've got no greater pleasure than welcome my good friend Peter Trego to the show. Peter, how are you?
How are you, James? I'm very well, thanks, mate.
I'm good. So look, we're going to talk through for the next half hour or so about everything about your life, what you've achieved, how you've achieved what you did over a long sporting career across multiple. You are the modern day Ian Botham. You were a footballer as well as a cricketer, and also now a golfer. So you're a very talented man. But talk to us a little bit about for those that I'm going to sort of share your story. You played cricket for how many years?
24 seasons.
24 seasons, and you were one of Somerset's greatest ever players, I think, in terms of the amount of runs. You think you were certainly in the top 10, if I'm correct me. You'll know the stats better than I.
Yeah, well, I think being an all-rounder, I think you're exactly that. You take your wickets, you score your runs. So probably not in the higher echelon of either category, but hopefully contributed to a few wins in my time.
You definitely contribute to plenty. And now you're the voice. One of the things you do now, alongside some other business stuff we'll talk about, is the voice of Somerset cricket on the on the YouTube channel, which is very popular. And as I was just welcoming to the building, there was someone shaking your hand. So you're very wonderful. But look, talking about did you always know? I mean, I want to talk today about like your life, what you've done in sport and achieving things, because I think in business there's a huge amount of similarities by doing things under pressure. But did you always know you wanted to be in? Were you always very good as a sportsman when you were younger?
Yeah, I think quite early on. I mean, I have sons now, and a daughter. But the sons in particular have an interest in sport. One, my youngest, is doing quite well, and he's currently starting to Gloucester. And we have a lot of conversations now about how he thinks about his path into professional sport. And I think nowadays, like, young sportsmen are so sort of aware of the fruits of what a sports career can give you. But when I really sort of sit down and think about what I felt like or thought about when I was a kid, it never really dawned on me that it would ever become a job. I just loved playing sport. Like, jack of all trades is probably, master of none probably sums me up quite well, because I just like to play everything. Hockey, I didn't play a great deal of hockey, but anything to do with whacking a ball around and really just like raw competition, I just absolutely adored it. And I think early on, it's probably appropriate to say that my PE teachers saw a natural gift in me and were always pushing me forward with my sport. But I didn't really need much pushing, in fairness. But I suppose the only thing I would say I definitely had was just self-belief, and not necessarily always in sport, and I know this is probably one of the things that I think culturally in the UK is quite difficult for other people to be faced with someone that's confident about what they do. You get put into like, he's arrogant, he's cocky, or whatever slur they attribute to someone who's just comfortable in their own skin and back themselves. I think we in the UK have a real issue with people like that. It certainly looks that way when people have success and how the media treat them. But from a youngster, I can remember being in Mrs. Bond's office, my head of year at the time, and Pete, you're quite talented academically, you really need to focus. And I was like, don't worry, miss, I'm going to be a sport. And like, a super arrogant thing to say, but I genuinely believed that if I put my mind to something, I could achieve it.
And what age were you where you thought, or what age were you like scouted? And was it because obviously you were a very good footballer, but also you were a very good cricketer, obviously, where you made most of your career, and you played a good golfer as well. But the point is, what age were you when you sort of thought someone's sort of going to scout you? Or did you know that there was that pathway to moving into professional sport?
Well, everything happened to me like really early, so I didn't have that sort of becoming a man stage in my life and then aspire to play professional sport. I played my first senior game for Somerset when I was 15. So it happened by accident, happened very quickly. So I never really had that period in my sort of young sporting life where there was I want to get there. and do everything I can to achieve that goal. It kind of just happened quite quickly. And at 15, what do you remember doing when you were 15 years old? Age? I was well, I was traveling, up the motorway to play my first game for Somerset's men's second 11 team against Derbyshire at 15. I mean, it's crazy.
And who had spotted you? Can you remember actually? Can you remember that conversation where they were like, "Yeah, we wanted to come and do this"? You must have felt quite, either been confident in your own skin. That's quite a big jump for a 15-year-old to do there.
Yeah, I think the reason was I was scoring a lot of runs. I was taking a lot of wickets, and at the level I was playing at, Somerset junior levels or local cricket here in Weston-super-Mare, and so difficult for me to say because you probably have to ask the coaches. But I know there was one sort of quite poignant moment very early on when I got invited to train with the first team, and I don't ever remember feeling daunted by that. It was just like, oh, this is going to be cool. And my first net session I had, the bowlers that were chosen to bowl against me in this particular net, taking into account I was 15 years old, was Graham Rose, genuine Somerset legend, like phenomenal cricketer, someone I idolised. Andy Caddick, one of England's best seam bowlers, who was 6'7" and bowled serious pace, and Andre van Troost, who didn't have the career that he should have had, but was touted as the quickest bowler to have ever bowled. So at 15 years of age, I was facing those guys in a net, and I remember the feedback from the coaches, like it was a torrid net. I mean, Andre van Troost didn't have great control, but he bowled in the high 90 miles an hour. And I can remember, fighting for my life in this net. I didn't play particularly great, but the coach was like, at your age, to not back away, shy away from the challenge. They were super impressed. The next week I was, driving up the motorway with Piran Holloway to make my second team debut. And I just think, for me personally, one of the things that I suppose I would pat myself on the back is, even when I'm in an uncomfortable environment sport-wise, I don't think I've ever backed away from the challenge. And I think for those who know cricket in particular, if you make an error of judgment against bowlers of that speed, you're going to break bones. So there's an element of sort of bravery. I don't perceive myself as brave, but I was always willing to get hurt to succeed. And I think they are two different things. Like I said, I don't think I'm a brave guy, but if I was in a tackle in football or rugby, or I was facing someone that made me feel uncomfortable, I was happy to take one for the team and try and succeed.
What you just talked about there, though, is a real sign for life in many cases of actually being able to be, not so much be brave, but also take some pain to accept that you're going to get somewhere. And go back to what you talked about. I know when we talk, there's a lot of people sometimes nowadays that don't want to do that, right? They prefer to take the easy route sometimes. And we've all got to go through pain to achieve what we want to. But as you developed your career and you went through your career, I mean, there were some difficult times for you. I always remember the thing with, you would never play for England, and you should have been, because at the time when it was in that period of your peak part of your career, where you were just the best all rounder in the country. And going back to that, how did that feel? Because that must have felt a bit. Did it make you feel frustrated or annoyed?
That I came to peace that it wasn't going to happen, but I also was pretty confident I couldn't have done much more. I was the MVP of whatever year it was, 2012. So I was statistically the best cricketer in the country. I played for England A. I think my last game I got 80 odd off 50 balls and 5 for 40, was man of the match and was never picked again. And there were a number of times where I did things on the field that I was like, I'd struggle to have like replayed that and done any better. I think I have two sort of like, I suppose, joint records for Somerset in that period. Most sixes in a season, which I think was 47, and the only player to score 1,000 one-day runs for Somerset, and I share that record with Viv Richards, and that's kind of cool. And when I look back, I think I'll never get over not being able to have tested my ability against top teams. But then in that time, we also played in a competition called the Champions League, where we played against all the IPL teams. And the IPL teams, you could arguably say, are probably better limited overs teams than any international team, because you've got the combination of the best Indian players and 4 of the world superstars at the time. And we played Calcutta Knight Riders, who were the IPL champions, in Hyderabad around that same sort of time. And Brett Lee, one of the greatest fast bowlers of the modern era, was steaming in with the new ball, and an hour and a half later, I'm 70 odd not out. Somerset win the game. And I think probably the question that sort of, I suppose, burns me a little bit is, was I good enough? But then I have experience like playing against players like that, and I did the job. So I kind of feel like, yeah, I feel like I was good enough. And also Somerset, it's a very famous thing in the English calendar where Somerset play the tourist teams. And I think we've played against the West Indies, South Africa, and India during my career. And I scored, I think I scored 200s, 100 against the West Indies, 100 against South Africa, and 80 something not out against India. Gives me an inclination that I probably could have done quite well. But I will say, on the flip side of that, is during the peak of my career, England did have 2 very fine seam bowling all-rounders, and that was Andrew Flintoff and Paul Collingwood. And they were brilliant cricketers. So if I was pitted up against those guys, probably don't have many complaints.
Around that same time, you also played, and maybe cover this, go back to some other stuff after. You played with a guy that I was listening to a podcast last week, which Michael Vaughan and Alistair Cook were talking about one of the greatest batters never to play for England, was James Hildreth, and he never got into. Would you think, when you look back, do you think there was a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a bias, but an element, they're over there, we don't need to worry about sort of, even though the performances were warranting those call-ups, do you think, did you and Hildy ever feel like, come on, what do we have to do?
I think it's fair to say that certainly for a very long period, that if you played for certain counties, your chances of playing for England were a lot higher. I mean, I think the hyper example of this was a great first-class batsman and did pretty well when he played for England was Mark Stoneman. He played for Durham for many years, opened the batting in very challenging conditions, did okay, signed for Surrey, was never even talked about when he played for Durham for an England call-up. Played for Surrey, started the season okay, which is pretty much what he did for the 8 previous seasons, and was picked straight into the England team because he was now under the Surrey banner. But that will only ever sound like sort of sour grapes. But I think it's fair to say that I think if me and Hildy played for Lancashire, Yorkshire, or Surrey, we would have. I personally believe that we would have played quite a few games for England between us.
So going through to talk a little bit about your cricket career and obviously some of the things you did. You were known as this sort of like fearless, swashbuckling guy that came in because you were, what was it, the tattoo talker people used to call you, and this sort of. But going back to what you just said a minute ago, you always have had, you've had this fearless attitude to approach. And I was talking about how people linked to business and what made that fear. Was it you said about you had that self-confidence, but to develop that, to generate that, sometimes you wish you could bottle that and take it and put it into people, don't you?
I think changing, if I'm honest, James, I think it's just changing language and mentality, because I think a lot of people that don't do things or don't perform as well as they could potentially do out of, let's call it fear, focus too much on like fear of outcome. Whereas I don't really understand or know where this came from. I undoubtedly would have heard it from someone that I had respect for or had an interest to. I was always like way more fearful of not doing the work than the outcome. I think it's certainly a Michael Jordan thing about how many buzzer shots he'd missed, how many games he'd lost in his career, but he's the GOAT in all sport from my point of view. I was happy with failing, like happy to make myself look stupid, to risk success. And I think there's I think if now on the retired, thinking about being somewhat entrepreneurial. The risks are financial, aren't they? You put money and time into a new business, and you have that decision, right? I'm going to press the green light to go on this business, but it's going to cost me X, and that is at risk. A lot of people don't press the green button, but also everyone that has any success does press the green button. What is that handbrake that you can take off in your head? Absolutely, you shouldn't be reckless, especially when it comes to your finances, but also you don't really get too far in life without taking a few punts along the way. And I think the best way to take those punts with your time and effort, not necessarily with finances and money, because I know that can put pressures on elsewhere. But, for me, like now retired, I probably have 5 sort of part-time elements to my life, and actually 2 or 3 of them are quite full-time, but my mind is on 24/7, and I like that. But that doesn't fit everyone. I can still live a happy life and, go out for walks with the dogs and go out for lunch with the missus and all that sort of stuff. But there's always a little bit of my grey matter that's switched on to the next thing. And I don't mind that. It's not for everyone, I guess. But, like I said, I've always been happy to put my time into an effort into success. I never feared making a cock up or a mistake or look stupid. A lot of people throughout my career would have looked at me doing something or challenging myself and going, what an idiot, what is he doing, who does he think he is, words like that. But I'm like, okay, I'll show you.
And that's already been, again, that's why I wanted you to do on the podcast, because there's a lot of things that you talked about today that I think obviously were very relevant for you in professional sport, but are just so relevant in life and in business. And in, I get a lot of people saying, I don't want to make a phone call because I'm worried about, what's the other person going to say? And I was like, what's the worst that can happen? Right? Well, they're going to put the phone down on you, or they're going to say to you, no. I mean, well, so what? But it's that, like you say, there is a lot of people that have this fear that they can't do things. But I also think what you said there is about the ethic. And I've always known your work ethic has just been quite phenomenal in terms of what you do, in terms of, whether it's in golf, in, the business that you've got now, you've got that real, like, I'm not going to get there unless I do the graft. And I guess that's come from professional sport and knowing that you have to just graft and grind it out in order to be able to get results.
Yeah, I think there's a number of like decisions that I've made about how I operate that bleed into my personal and work life, sport life. And, I do a little bit of coaching as well, and I've head coached at professional level a number of times in franchise competitions. So I see a lot of people across the spectrum, whether it be in business owners or in sport, that they're happy to have what I would call superficial relationships with people, where say the right thing, you never say anything to ruffle any feathers, because every time you sort of create a little bit of friction, there's a chance that the person opposite you, this guy's not for me, or this person's not for me, and you lose that. For me, this is like quite arbitrary, but if I come into contact with 100 people in a year, I want to be myself. If I feel like there's a challenging conversation to have, I have it. And you might lose 90, but you will find 10 that appreciate your openness, your honesty, because I'm all about trying to perform, but also help other people perform. And I'm not always right, but I'm also not happy to have those sort of like what I would call like tippy-tappy interactions with people, because I think the people that you can sit in front of, say something that they might not like, and still have a beer with you or still phone you the next day, they're the people you want in your life, not these, like I said, superficial relationships. We can all have those, but I think the real sort of like the honey out there, whether it be a business life, personal life, is to have people around you that you can make cough and choke.
Good for our podcast. But look, so in terms of, just go back a little bit on your cricket career. You had that time, but you were a footballer, right? And you played football. What was it like to be able to, because obviously people would look at it and go, how can you do both? Was that just because you were sportingly talented? But there are differences in
Yeah, well, I played non-league football, so I had what's called a semi-professional. Have a drink, James. Down it.
Not a good deal for podcasting for you, Carol.
You have. I had a 39-week contract playing non-league football for a number of teams. Yeah, I was a pretty tidy footballer. And I had my cricket contract as well. And it was almost like the end of a season finished. Everyone had all the other cricketers, not saying all of them had the ability to play multi-sports, but they'd shut down their whole sort of athletic lives for a month. The very next day I would be in football training. As soon as the last cricket ball was bowled or hit, I'm straight into the football. And I love that. Did some pretty cool things at non-league level. Could I have made it into league football? Potentially, if I was 100% focused, but I knew that cricket was always the main aspiration. And I actually think that Brian Rose, who's the director of cricket, around the real sort of turning point in my career, 2005-06. Us again having one of those conversations where he told me something I didn't want to hear. Time to park the football. This is what you need to do, and that decision was brilliant for me in terms of like what I've done in my cricket career. And he's still a great friend of mine now.
So what I want to talk about when because you play sport in front of especially in those Champions League games in front of thousands of people. And again, just talking about pressure and handling pressure, and people always say pressure's for tires and all this sort of stuff. But I always think it can make or break people. And I remember, I think it was just before, there's a cricketer called Scott Boswell, who, if anyone wants to search for him on YouTube, it's sad actually what happened to him, because I think he basically lost it completely in a big final when Somerset were playing Leicestershire, I think it was, and he never recovered. I don't think he ever got back into the game. But that ability to withstand pressure is something that you all sort of seem to thrive on. Was there anything in particular that was just, when you're in front of like thousands of people watching you, and you ticker up? I mean, talk to that feeling about how did you cope and deal with those moments?
I think you have a sense of occasion, like in big games, semi-finals, finals. Yeah, I've always thought the semi-finals are more pressurised than finals, because everyone's desperate to get to the final, and there's something in the achievement of making a final. Semi-finals are feels like it's all on the line. I had a really sort of organic relationship with the supporters, home and away. If I was around the boundary edge, walking out to bat, happily have a chat, a bit of banter. It's a weird thing unless you've experienced it. We've played, I think in Hyderabad we had 45, 50,000 people watching that particular game against the IPL champions. And it's the weirdest thing when you're in the action. You've got a orb come hit you at quite a rate of knots. You can't really take your eye off the ball. It's like if you watch a replay of you taking a high catch in a cricket match, there is so much noise from the periphery when the ball's up in the air. Oh, whatever noise are being made. But when you're under it, it's just nothing. For me, I can't speak for any other cricketer, but it's nothing. It's the ball and you and making that catch. You just don't, and the same facing the ball. You can have, show a back to Brett Lee running to bowl with you, and all the crowd are up and clapping and cheering and shouting, and nothing, absolutely nothing. Can't hear a thing. It's just the ball.
Because you just blocked it out.
It's nothing. I'm trained to do it. It's just, if someone says, if I watch a replay of me facing a ball from Brett Lee, first ball of a massive game, it's like 100, I don't know what, decibels aren't great, but it's loud. Yeah. But my memory of that moment is silence. And it's a strange thing. So in terms of pressure, I don't think you can put pressure down to finite moments of facing a ball or taking a catch, because that for me is, you're so focused on what you're doing at that elite level that everything else is just a blur. I think it's all the silly things like trying to get to sleep the night before. When you've got a big moment in front of you, whether it be in business, a big meeting, or a big moment in sport, I think it's how you manage yourself leading up to the first ball being bowled that's most important. As a sportsman, being physically in the best shape you can be in, being prepared, being fed, having good sleep, waking, get into the ground, so you're not rushing around, so you can unpack your kit and get into the right headspace. I think those are the things like that that was it, the 5 P's, some weird, piss poor preparation or something like that. I subscribe to that. I think the better I became as a sportsman, I was just locked in before a game, whether it be football, cricket, or now a game of golf, and I'm trying to scrap my way onto like making cuts at the clutch tour level. It's just about get into the moment of executing, and I've just ticked all my boxes.
But I guess again that goes back to your professionalism, because a lot of people, especially in maybe the era where you played cricket, didn't do that, did they? There were a lot of people that would be on the bevies the night before, and and whereas you always struck me that was you'd enjoy yourself when you'd won a game or won a tournament, but you were very professional before that. And I guess that goes back down to, like you say, the business. There's a lot of people in business that will eat badly or not train or not look after themselves, and then wonder why they're not performing. And I guess it comes down to that, doesn't it? It's that element of what you've programmed yourself to be.
Well, it's like doing a podcast with someone who's choking to death across the table. You need to be prepared, clear those the throat box. But it wasn't an immediate thing, because I look back at it now in terms of like memories as a real plus point. So back end of the 90s into the 2000s, I think it was sort of early 2000s where the game really did change, fitness testing and a real requirement for you to be an athlete, not just someone who's good at cricket. Because you can get away with being a good cricketer and not being an athlete, in fairness. It's a game that combines like athleticism and skill. There's lots of people that aren't in great shape that can be brilliant players. Some of the greats weren't in great shape. But, I started my career in the late 90s. I can remember, again, 15, 16, 17, going away with the men's teams, traveling around the country, playing games of cricket. And I can remember, what's it like? A lot of my friends are interested. What's it like? It's like, wow, it's like, it's like going on a stag do. Some of the trips, like the lads go to the pub and have a few beers and, go to bed at 11 and wake up the next day. A couple of them are a bit dusty, and then we play cricket and we play hard and all that sort of stuff. But then the day ends and the guys go down to the bar and have a couple of beers with the members, and it was like that was cricket and rugby. I think football was 5 years, I suppose. But then you look at, I suppose I'm a sort of from definitely a distance, follow Man United. And, I think you've got that, it's pretty well talked about now. Your Brian Robsons, your talking about other players like your Paul Merson types, your Tony Adams, it's very well known that during the sort of early mid 90s, there was a bit of a drinking culture, brilliant athletes, and they got away with it, but they didn't live the lifestyle a professional footballer lives now. So there's a change, and I sort of saw a bit of that, and it probably coincided with me not doing brilliantly. I did okay when I was young, but I did way better once the game had changed, and it was you looked after yourself, and you swapped out your pint of Thatcher's cider for a protein shake and a banana in an evening, and you saved your Thatcher's Gold for winning games. And again, that within itself is a massive change in mentality. So I urge anyone to do it, or at least try it. So I think living sort of your life in some level of moderation, if you're a bit heavy or you're not very fit, do some sort of changes. I think it's really important that, living relatively sort of a cleanish lifestyle. I don't really drink, just by choice. I have the occasional one, but you know what? Because I have an occasional drink, I love having an occasion. Like, I really enjoy that pint of Thatcher's Gold when I have one. If I had one every couple of days, it just And I think if you change your mentality to like, it's probably called like cheat days or treats or something like that. I think if you're sort of like quite regimented in looking after your health, ticking a few fitness boxes, and then have a lazy day and a pint and a McDonald's or whatever your vice is, you enjoy that so much. It's worth those other 5 or 6 days where you just like look after yourself a little bit. And I think that's massive. You get a massive endorphin boost from the times where you do sit on the couch, do sod all day and have some fast food. If I did that on a number of days, and I have done, certainly in this last year when I've been busy, driving around the country a lot, lots of service station food, energy levels, the sharpness of my thinking massively gets affected. But I'd urge anyone who's sort of stuck in a rut in anything, whether it be sport or their business or anything, just to look at that side of their life. Good sleep, good food, a little bit of exercise, even if it's just going out for a walk with the dogs or just going out for a walk. I think it gives you such better focus and clarity.
No, I totally agree. A couple of quicker questions before we go on to a couple of other things. Hardest cricketer you ever faced, or toughest opponent you ever faced?
Toughest cricketer I ever faced.
The opponent where you thought, this just feels like hard. Even for a confident person like you, it felt.
Yeah, I mean, the era that I played in county cricket was a real blessed one as well. Franchise cricket was around, but one of the sort of pinnacles for international cricketers was to come and play county cricket. The great your Darren Lehman, Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting, all like Shane Warne was had that association with Hampshire for years. VVX Laxman, all of the great players in modern history played county cricket, and I had the opportunity to play against and with a lot of those guys. There were days when you sort of you elevate yourself when you're in front of those guys. You've got to try and get them out. I had, again, the opportunity when I was really young to play against my absolute hero, which was Robin Smith, who played for Hampshire in England. He was a hard man. When I first got, I think, really turned on by cricket was watching him bat against the West Indies, like a brutally fast bowling attack. Ian Bishop caught him on the jaw with a short ball, and you could see on the camera that his jaw was starting to swell in front of you. Probably cracked if that would have hurt. 90 mile an hour straight on jawbone, no helmet, and he's had this like iron look. And that was kind of the first time I saw a bit of what I loved about football in those days in cricket, and that really changed my mentality of what cricket was at that level. I saw that man-on-man battle, and that really inspired me. But then I had a chance to play against him when he played for Hampshire, and he was a brilliant cutter and puller, played the short ball brilliantly. And I wasn't a particularly quick bowler, but Andy Caddick was at mid-off, and I think it was my second championship game against Hampshire at Taunton. And it was kind of a no-no in county cricket to bowl short to Robin Smith. That was his bread and butter. He was gonna, yeah. And I was at the end of my run, 2 or 3 overs in. I was bowling nicely, and I was like, "Caddy, I'm just desperate to bowl him a bouncer. I've idolised this guy, cutting and pulling." And he was like, "Well, I don't advise it, Tregs, but if you want to give it a go, give it a go." And I bowled him a bouncer, and he belted me into the stand for 6. But I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing that my hero just hit me for 6. And then I sort of went back into like work mode, and 3 or 4 balls later, got him out. I mean, it was just that was an amazing experience to play against those sort of players. But in terms of tough cricketers, I would say that in my era, Darren Lehman, when he was on, his record for Yorkshire is staggering. I think he averaged about 75 for Yorkshire on challenging pitches. When you got a sense that he was in, it was Graham Hick, Mark Ramprakash, Darren Lehman. I think it was all there was a stage that in their batting where it became inevitable they were going to get 100. And I haven't seen many players that I've played against in my 20 odd years that I felt that they will play a certain shot and you just go, not much we can do here, lads. And that's even having people like Andy Caddick in the bowling attack. They were phenomenal players.
There's some legends that you mentioned there for sure. And just in terms of, those are sort of batters. In terms of the bowlers, was there a bowler that when you were coming in to bat, you batted at 6 for Somerset in sort of county championship, but then you went into 3 for the one day. Was there a bowler that came in and you were like, okay, this guy's either rapid or was a magician with a spin or whatever, that you thought, this guy's hard work to play against?
Well, I think the one bowler that I think I was a good player. I think I am or was a pretty good player of spin. I got a good record against spin bowling. Shane Warne was a magician.
Did you face it?
Yeah, and I got him for a couple of 6s, but he got me at LBW with that famous flipper delivery, and it was amazing. But you felt very much in a battle. You felt very much like you were the underdog in that battle, but I still felt like I had something to combat him with. I faced Matthias Muralitharan, and it was just survive and don't look stupid. Before he had his shoulder operation, I forget when, he turned the ball like a yard either way, and because of his action, that was very hard to pick as well, and the pace that he bowled, and I found that like super challenging. In terms of fast bowlers, faced most of the greats of my sort of time span, which was awesome. I used to really feel like that's when my game was at its best, when I was like, oh, this is hairs on the back of your neck stuff, and used to love that. I have to admit, one guy that used to just hit me in the helmet, like, I reckon in my whole career I probably got hit on the helmet about 4 times, and 3 of them were Simon Jones. Simon Jones, for some reason, I could never pick up his short ball, and that's a horrible place to be. When you know that if he bowls you a bounce, the likely high chance is going to hit you on the body somewhere. And he used to clang me on the helmet for a pastime. He used to sort of amble in and then 95 miles an hour. Whereas you had a Shoaib Akhtar and a Brett Lee and a Chris Silverwood in his heyday and and a Mark Wood, they're steaming in. So you get a sense of something fast is coming. Simon Jones was just like amble in, and then this rocket would come at you. And it just, for some reason, I just could never line him up.
If there's any consolation, you've probably seen the video of me at the Lashins event with Simon Jones, so I'm with you on that one. But just moving, conscious of time, and you're a busy man, you've got lots of stuff to do. We'll talk about the business second in a minute. But just, are there any similarities also between professional sport and business now? When you look, and the other similarity that what we've mentioned around, you talk about risk and about being fearless and be able to, are there things that, and I go back to that element, I remember you talking to me once about Sachin Tendulkar, who was one of the greatest cricketers ever to live, across the planet. And I remember, I'm sure you said this, said to me that you asked him a question around how he copes with certain situations. And I think the answer that you gave me at the time, if it's the same answer now, was pretty simple, which was it was breathing. And it was that, those sort of conversations. And when people are going through difficult times, I mean, people listening to this that are going through a difficult time in their life or in business or in something's not going wrong for they've lost a deal or whatever else. Were there mechanisms that you used when you were at your most difficult times as a sports person that that just helped you, that can help people now, do you think?
Well, I genuinely think, and in the sort of like podcast era, and I think people expect the answer to be something that sounds amazing, and I just don't think it is. Like Sachin's, the conversation, I got on quite well with Rahul Dravid, who was known as the Wall, an amazing cricketer himself, right up there with the probably top 10 batters of all time. And I asked him, because I knew him, any chance I could have a chat with Sachin, and I just wanted to talk to him about batting, and I was expecting something miraculous. And he just talked about his breathing for 30 minutes, bored the arse out of me. It was like such an underwhelming thing, but it took me a while to realise that actually, when I started to think about, people talk about being in the zone. Being in the zone for me as a cricketer is being calm. And to be calm, I think a byproduct of that is you have to have your breathing in check. You're not in the crisis. Well, one of the hardest times as a cricketer is when you run a 3, because you sprint 3 runs. So you sprint like 80 meters or whatever the distance is with a turn, and your heart rate is 150 plus, and you're breathing quickly, and you've got to face a ball like within 5 or 6 seconds time. As soon as I started to realize that focusing on getting my heart rate back, but that coincides with being fitter as well, because the fitter you are, the quicker your cardiovascular system recovers. Being in control of myself helped me perform. And when I scored hundreds, like our psychologist said, what does it feel like when you're out there? I said, it's the weirdest thing. This is John Pitts, who's a great guy. He's worked for some Formula One teams and has worked for professional football teams and Somerset. I said, it's the weirdest thing, Pitsy. Like when I'm at the non-strikers end, when almost every time I've ever scored like 50 plus runs, I feel like I could just lean on my bat and fall asleep stood up. I am just in this weird place. It actually feels quite uncomfortable until I understood that it was me at my best, until I worked that out. And I think, to answer the question, in business, is I don't think there is a magical solution for whatever your challenge is, but I think people, that phrase in business, people do business with people. I don't think there's a truer word. I think in the digital age, you can have faceless relationships, but I still would suggest that a lot of business is done face to face. If you're in control of yourself, you're calm, you're prepared, and ultimately backing yourself. If I was selling something to you or offering a service, I need to really, really believe that my service is an advantage to you. And if I do believe that, and I've done my work, that comes across somewhere in the ether, and that person goes, this guy's talking the truth, there's some sense. And I do see a lot of things online where there's do this magical thing, and it sounds very fantastical, but I just don't think that is where the real magic is. I think it's like within yourself, preparing, making sure you've got a product that people want, whatever that may be. Even stuff like with my new business, Cricket Star. I mean, hopefully you can see on screen. I had the opportunity to design and make some hoodies, but I went into like material weights, designs of every single thing that was chosen. So I could have just picked a hoodie from anywhere, but I did it in a way that when I say that these are on our website, I absolutely believe they're probably the best hoodies out there. And I think if you transfer that to whatever your genre is, I think that's where the real success is.
And I think you're right with that sort of element of being able to, people look for the magic cure, and actually sometimes the magic is just in the basics, isn't it? The basics of good preparation, like you said, and good planning, and actually those elements of breathing, and just being able to be calm. And I think it's interesting you say about being, it's the same as in a business situation. People listen to this going, I'm going to a sales meeting. With you have 3 Fs: you fight, you flight, or you freeze. And most of the time people tend to run away, flight, or freeze, but actually the way you fight is to be able to prepare yourself for that and know how you're going to handle it. It comes from your preparation. So it's no different. And I think you're right, it's just about being able to control that emotion and control that in that calmness that you talked about, and being able to be really calm. And even when you were 99, you didn't even did the tensions rise? Shape, or it's still
99. That's when I started to shit myself. Definitely. Everyone knows that 99 to 100 run. That's a different beast. Yeah, no calm, lots of breathing, panic mode. Try and get that extra run. But I think, I think it's just find your own flow. I'm convinced, apart from those faceless transactional businesses, which I know there are lots of, that are just emails, computers, or digital space stuff. What do you, when you're working with someone or want to bring someone into your environment, I think really what does the other person want? You want someone that's likable, comfortable in their own skin. And I think that part of it, comfortable in their own skin, means you believe in your product. I think that is a big part of that. And someone who's trustworthy. I think in the modern world, there's an appetite to maximize, whether it be like how much you're going to charge or bill or whatever it is, to maximize from the word go. I think strong, long-standing business relationships. So you know what, we're gonna do this for a couple of months. It's gonna be X, but I know it will scale when you see what I can deliver. I really like that narrative. I really, because you're not just trying to sting someone for the maximum from ball one. You're going into a business, or you're bringing someone into your business, and there's that period where, okay, let's work together. And I'm very confident that after 6 weeks, you're going to love what we're doing. And that's when the money's made, or the whatever it.
It's such a good point. I talk about it, something called the hidden 10% in business and sales, which is actually the bit which is all about you as a person, who you are and what you do and how you come across. And it's hidden because it's about your values. It's about how you care. It's about what you look to do. And ultimately, it's the bit that people look at and go, okay, I want to work with that person, or I want to go to battle with those people. And I guess, if you think about your career, going back to the conscious of time now, and we'll finish in the set, but your career, and you will, I have no doubt, from knowing you, and you were the sort of person when you were in the middle, or with the other 10 teammates you played with, that people were like, yeah, I know this guy's got my back. And I think that's critical, isn't it? Especially in talk about your business environment now, but if you've got the backing of other people and they've got the backing of you, it becomes quite a powerful, unstoppable trait, both in sport and business.
Yeah, I think you can learn to be conscientious, but I do think that is born out of your upbringing, your influencers, your school teachers, your mentors, your brothers, your sisters. I think if you surround yourself with fellow conscientious people that will, we've known each other a long time now. You've done me favors. I will always return favors to you. But that's not the core of our relationship. We enjoy each other's company. We play a bit of golf together. We have a good time. But on the flip side of that, I know through a number of experiences that you'll dig me out of whatever it is if I needed it, and I do the same for you. And like I said, that's just it's just a non. I mean, this is a proper business. It's a non-negotiable way of how I try my best to be with people. Haven't always executed it. Made my mistakes like everyone else has, but that's the person I aspire to be. And like within my challenges of business, sport, whatever it is, I think one of my biggest challenges is be the bloke I want to be the person I want to be. I'm semi-conscious quite a lot of like leaving a cricket ground and hoping that the supporters that watch me, the players I played against, I came up in conversation 3 weeks later, they'd be like, whatever they want to talk to me about as a player, not really that bothered, but like I would love someone to said, I played against him a few times, great competitor, like came hard at me, like, but he was a good dude.
Good man. Yeah, no, I agree. And I couldn't agree more. And I think, you're saying it's like, and I also think it's about, I do the things that I do because there's somewhere around the world, someone will listen to something and they'll go, that's helped me. And I think, you've done the same. You've been, had that privilege. There'll be people, probably a bit older now, but that have grown up playing cricket because of you, or watching cricket, and that cricket and that sport, or that game they played, or that physicality, or that mentality that they've developed because of what you've done, will have put them to solve a critical situation in their life or in their situation. Sometimes we don't think about that ripple effect, but I've got no doubt that you've created lots and lots, far more than I have, because of the impact you had on people's lives. And even, you made me, I remember, when Somerset won the one-day final a few years ago, you made me smile that night, because it was like, it was...
I think that was the wine.
That was the cider probably, but yeah, but it's that ability to influence people's lives in that way, which is what you've done. And I guess that's the beauty of what you do.
I don't think it stops there. No. I think again, whether you're looking after yourself health-wise, exercise, whatever it may be, there's just a consistency. If you try and be as consistent as you can. I actually think, when I was thinking about the conscientiousness, I used to go out for walks with my nan at Western Beach. I spent a lot of my upbringing with my nan, and Judy the poodle, walking around. And my nan just educated me. Every single person we used to greet on the street, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it was, always greeting people. She used to make me hold open doors in shops for like ages while like there's a person like 30 yards away, hold the door, Peter, and I'd be standing there. Good afternoon, how are you? Yeah. And I think that was a core sort of like fundamental of my character quite early on in my upbringing. Again, just like be a good person, try and be a good person as much as you can.
So look, before we finish, just talk about cricket style, because I know it's been something you're interested in, and we want to, give it, because it's a great business, and I think, it's got huge potential and you've put a lot of, so explain, for anyone listening to it, explain what it is and as a chance to, and what it's about really. And I think it's a perfect fit for you because of your cricket background, but also your ability to be, like you say, and I see you changing lives daily now with people winning things. So talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of a way to market for products like cricket equipment. It's big in the golf industry, cars and houses, pretty much everything now. I know there's a really successful business that does darts equipment, boards and flights and all the stuff that people love with darts. So it's the online raffles essentially. Probably is the rudimentary explanation of it. So I love cricket kit as well. Like cricketers and golfers are the same animal. Like new driver, it's like Gollum's ring. You want to like, mine is mine. So you can never have too many golf clubs or cricket bats. So I know that there's like in the cricket space, there's certainly a lust for the equipment. So, and the way that it's changed and the quality of the kit out there now, it's quite an expensive sport to play now. The very, very top end kit that we supply put together, it's a couple of £1,000 worth of kit, and we'll have a limited amount of tickets, raffled tickets, and you essentially will buy a few relatively low cost. You can put a couple of quid up to a tenner if you want to give yourself a pretty decent chance of winning, sort of 1 in 20 or whatever the odds might be at the time. We've been running a couple of months now. Tens of thousands of pounds worth of kit has been shipped all across the UK. Our followers, players haven't really had a negative word said about it. I personally do the live draws. I go into my like Dale Winton mindset and try and make it a little bit fun. The draw nights, and it's brilliant. I mean, as a business, like we love our players winning the stash, and really encourage them to take a video of it or send us some pictures of them winning it. Obviously, it's not everyone can win all the time, but we've got quite a few regular players that have had some awesome kit sent their way.
Well, I was looking on Sunday, and you've got like this grey nickel set of kit, which is like £1,000 worth of gear, which I was looking at, and it can be like for £1.49 the chance to, and I guess I think the reason it's really interesting for me when I think of that is goes back to what you said about being fearless and trying. Okay, well actually it's like in anything in life, you don't know, and we're not encouraging people to they've got to do it responsibly, whatever they want to, but a lot of time you don't get a chance to win unless you try something and actually give something a go. And so I think if you're a cricket fan watching this and you've got a son or a daughter or someone that's maybe loves the game but struggles to give it a chance, right? Because the chances are you're going to get a chance to win some gear, but actually that would cost you thousands.
Yeah, I mean, most cricketers have got their own equipment. They've probably already bought their bat, but again, bats do break from time to time. For me, it's a little bit community based as well. We're outreaching, we're doing some sort of kickback schemes for clubs with like specific codes and all that kind of stuff. And as we grow, I think we'll try and outreach. I think with whether it be next summer or the following summer, we'd like to do a big sort of cricket star sort of T20 competition that clubs can enter, and I think that's what we would aspire to do. But at the moment, I really want the new bat that Ben Stokes is using, but I've just been online and it's £1,200. I can't quite afford that, but you know what? I'll chuck in a fiver and have a pretty decent chance of winning it. And that's our business model. We're trying to make it fun. Like I said, we want genuine,
it's genuine, authentic. Where I look at it,
but it needs to be a relatively nominal amount of money as well, to a point. I mean, like I said, if I always think if some of the sites that do like Porsche 911 GT3s and all that kind of stuff, they kind of look like lottery odds. It's like hundreds of thousands to one. But winning our kit, it's very fair. Like we've made sure it's actually, again, one of my sort of main non-negotiables. It needs to be super fair. I would say, even though I can't absolutely say it for sure on this podcast right now, but I would say across the board in terms of what you get for the ticket price, it'd be the best out there, and I want to keep it that way. There's no reason for me to change that.
And are you excited? Just think of it, final sort of question. How excited are you? Because obviously you do your commentary on the Somerset and you got your golf and you also still play the game, and there's lots of clubs all around the world that still want you to play because you're still in good nick and you do that sort of stuff. But how excited are you about the business? Because it feels like, to me, it feels like, I've said to you, it feels like just a natural fit for you in terms of sort of linking business and sport together. So you must be quite buzzing about what it could look like and where it can go, especially because the international opportunities are huge. Cricket's a global game.
Yeah, I think it does have. I mean, we're the first to market in cricket. Yeah. It's a different way of people getting hold of the kit that they aspire to get hold of. So that's a real positive. Again, took that brave punt. No one was doing it. I liked it in. It's pretty big in the golf world. Why wouldn't cricketers like that? So again, taking that punt and putting my time and effort into it over the 3 or 4 months now. I'm excited about that, but again, as I said earlier on in this chat, I don't feel like the slowing down of the way my mind works. Like, yes, I will be focused and I will want to succeed, but there's always part of my mind that's like, right, next challenge we need to do. I very much like, I feel like I'm always on, physically, mentally. I'm not overly comfortable with just being sedate. Even when I am just sat in my chair with the TV on, I'm not really watching it. I'm thinking about, okay, that would be really good. Why don't we try that? And I think that's probably why I've got so many different things. I mean, I would probably describe myself some days as, what's that phrase? A busy idiot, running around like a blue-ass fly, maybe not achieving, the perfect outcome. But yeah, I think within the strive, you find out the parts of your life that are pretty good. I've really enjoyed my commentary, and to have the opportunity to work with people like Vic Marks in particular, who was like test match special. He's got one of those sort of, he's one of the voices of cricket for me. So to sit alongside him and chat about, we're both Somerset players as well. So to chat across the two eras, I would call mine like the Langer Trescothick era, and he was the Viv Richards of Botham era. And how, because of that cricket community, there are crossover stories. I mean, that's a great part of my sort of year. But the business, it started really well. People are enjoying it. That's the main thing. Like, people really are enjoying the content, the output, the stuff we're looking to do. I think people see what we're trying to do, and they also like the chance of winning some pretty awesome stuff.
Amazing. So, look, thank you so much for giving me your time. To appreciate it. Where could people find you if they want to reach out to you? Or is there a channel that's best, a social channel that's best for them to connect? Obviously on Instagram and LinkedIn and those sort of things. Where's the best place if someone wants to reach out to you or talk to you about Cricket Star? Maybe there's someone listening to you that's got some gear they want to share with you or put out to you. Where's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I've got an X and an Instagram under my name. So that's easy to find. Cricket Star Competitions is our website. Also has the relevant social medias, and I'll be generally findable, bouncing off walls and ceilings from time to time. Come into a wall and ceiling near you.
Love it, mate. Look, well, thank you so much for giving it your time today. It's conversations flows as ever, mate, and it's great to hear your stories and some of the stuff which I didn't know about in terms of some elements around your background and what you did and how you achieved what you success in. Look, it's been great to share some time with you, and I think, as I said, I still believe you want to as sports people go, you're one of the most inspirational sports people because you made people feel that it was possible. And I think that's the thing for me, is that it's giving people that hope or that dream that actually they can go and do the things they want to do if they work hard enough and make it happen. And you made that happen. You brought that to a lot of people and bring that that story together, which is great.
Well, James, if I can make it from Wyvern Comprehensive in West-on-Supermare, anyone can make
There you go. Nothing's finer than that. But look, mate, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Great to have you on the podcast. And it's been a long time coming. So I wanted to do it for a little while, but finally got a chance to get it done. So thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
So there you go. So there was Peter Trego. Great. Have a look at your story. Incredible cricketer. So many inspirational games that I watched Peter at. It was a real privilege for me to have that chat with him, but also commonalities around how so many things that we do in sport and life and business are common between the lot. So that's it for the podcast this week. Thanks for listening. As ever, if you like what we do, then share it and like it and tell other people about it so we can get more guests like Peter on the podcast. But until next week, that's it. Thanks very much and see you soon. Take care.